And I'll pop the recorder.
Can I just...
We're online now. We're online. So
Cheryl, before we start, that I'm cooking also, and I got people popping in and out. So you can put me on silent if you want, because I don't want it to be noisy.
Hang on, I have to stop this recording because we've now stopped recording. So good evening, everyone. This evening we've got a fantastic evening presented by the one and only Karen Brown, who is now the proud owner of Grey Mouse Publishing. So I'm really excited to introduce Karen to you, for her to share all her amazing tips and tricks, how we can all become bestsellers. So I've brought along the 3 books that Karen has helped me produce. And I think, you know, our first book is always our little baby. And it's almost like as though you've just got to get over the first book. You've got to get over seeing almost like your words in print, so that you can get on to it. It almost feels like you've got to get on then to a real book in order just to, I don't know what it is about your first book. It's almost like as though you can't believe you are the person that puts a book together that somehow then arrives either in the post or gets put up on Amazon. It's all a bit surreal when you write your first book. And I was delighted, you know, when Karen helped me publish this first book. And I was so delighted because it just felt part of me, because of course Karen helped me design all the front cover. We even did the, you know, the book band together and the rear of the book. And I suppose because I had one-to-one coaching with Karen, every part of this book, I had confidence in going to print and getting out there on Amazon. And it's remembering you're uploading all of this yourself on Amazon, and really within a day, well, really within an afternoon, you can get a book up and published on Amazon and starting to sell. But it's one of those things where that's really not the way to do it, because everything has got to follow a set process if you're going to have a bestseller. And that was the beauty of working with Karen one-to-one, was that she took me through the process of how to do it. And on day 1 of this book going live, it went straight into the strategic management book charts with Amazon. And it's just lovely on day 1 to be able to say, this is what happened to my book. And we're not talking massive numbers. We're just talking about being strategic about the launch and how you notify people to buy and when to buy. And then obviously then it becomes a bestseller. And so this little book then, so that little book took me on to writing this bigger book. Yeah, so I really loved writing this book. And you can see how I grew from the first book to the second book when you read this book. And, you know, when you open it up, the quality of this journal is just beautiful. And that's what I really wanted to create. I almost wanted to get the first book out of the way and then create a really beautiful book, knowing that, you know, this is going to be around for nearly a year for people to work through. What did you think about the quality of this book, Karen, because you're the publisher?
I got a hard copy version as part of Aspire, and I couldn't have been more delighted. My copy actually arrived before your copy, so I was there on there. Look what and it was the hardcover is just a thing to behold, and because it's hardcover, it's going to last a lot longer, especially when you're going to be using it over the year. But it was just so tactile; you could just keep touching it. And, you know, it's not cheap, but oh my goodness, it delivers value.
Because then the hardbacks come from Germany, aren't they? Printed in Germany.
Yeah, they're all printed. I think most of them are printed in Germany, but because mine are coming to Ireland anyway, so they would be. But the quality, especially the hardcover, was brilliant. And as I say, it was just so tactile. I just wanted to give it a cuddle because it was just such a beautiful book. It was almost a shame to write in it.
There was a very different strategy to book two, because I didn't want it as a bestseller. I know it sounds weird. I wanted it as a book that supported my learning, a book that supported people in I Am Woman. So it wasn't about getting it out there. It was very much developing a book that is really quite it's an intelligent book, how it's all put together, and it supports the learning in Aspire, and it supports people to set their goals within the I Am Woman portfolio. So it is a very different ethos of the book, very different price point as well, because the little book was £8.99, so very much an easy book to make a bestseller, whereas the hardback's £35 and the other large paperback is £18.99 or something like that, 18.88 or something. So but I just love publishing books with Karen, and we've got another one on the go, but I really haven't condensed that as yet. But it's one of those things where it's like committing yourself to childbirth. Yeah, you get to that point where you're pregnant and you just got to see the darn thing through. Yeah, and that's what I feel when I'm working with Karen. You know, once I got pregnant with the idea, there's only one way, and it ain't a pretty sight. Yeah, and it's almost like two or 3 days before it is almost going into a full-blown labor, where you're in total pain, and there's like blood, sweat and tears all over the place, and you know that until it's up on Amazon, you're not going to be happy, and until you've seen that, almost like the proof of the pudding, your proof come through, you think, it's almost like, so until you see that baby, you're not believing it's a baby. Yeah, so it's the same with your book. And but it's one of those things where afterwards you forget all the pain when you see the cover, and you're just so pleased that you've actually been through the process. So over to you now, Karen. So you're going to be showing us how to, really some tips around writing a bestseller, but also some great tips on how to then publish it and it be a bestseller. So over to you.
So have you got pen and paper? Okay, right. If you got pen and paper, just write the word publish going down. So P, U underneath it, B underneath it. And I'm just going to share the screen. And I'm just going to go to take you through the process. So, and this is where Cheryl's going to kill me because I got another website. But this is the one and only, because everything else is finishing with this. This will be my one and only. It's linked to Grey Mouse Publishing. But what I've got is an acronym of publish. So the first thing is preparation. Okay. So preparation is all about making sure you write the right book. Okay. So you need to look at it from your point of view as an author, but also the reader's point of view. And essentially what you're doing is you're asking 3 questions. You're asking who, what, and why. So from the author's point of view, who am I to write this book? So what's your background? What's your expertise? What's your experience? Who are you to write this book? Okay. The what is it you're going to write about? Okay, get very clear about it. And also why do you want to write it? Okay, because understanding your why will actually get you over that point where you actually get published. Because as like a baby, it's, you know, with a baby you can't hand it back. Once you're there, you're committed. But with a book, you can actually just decide, actually, this is too hard, I don't want to do it. So it is about persistence. So understanding why will actually keep you going. Okay. From the reader's point of view is, who is this person who's written this book? What do I know about them? Do I know them, like them, and trust them? Okay. What is it? You know, what's in it for me? Why should I buy this book? So you have to think in terms of your reader as much as the author. You know, And it's all about that whole thing that Donald Miller says in StoryBrand. You are the guide, the customer is the hero. So what is it you want to help your hero overcome with your book? And that's a preparation. And at the end of it, what you need to do is do a bit of research of the market to make sure there is actually a market. So going back to Aspire, it's that whole pedestal analysis. So think in terms of what other books have been written, who have they been written by, how well are they selling, what is it you can do differently, and think about the reviews that those books have got, because the reviews will tell you what's missing. So there's a really nice lady called Matali, and she came up with this thing, and it's really cool. People who buy a book and really, really like it will give it 5 stars. People who really hate it will give it 1 star. People who are going to give constructive criticism will give a 3 or 4 star. And the constructive criticism will tell you what's missing in the book, what you need to do differently to make it a book that appeals to that person. So have a look at the reviews of the books in a similar arena. Okay. So if you're looking at cookery books, you know, you'd have a look at all the bestsellers. You get a copy of them, look at how they do it. Are they all color, or are there some black and white? You know, have a look at the different prices of what people are doing, because you have to think in terms of how cost effective it's going to be, especially if it's in color, because you're going to have to do all the photography for that. And the structure of the layout is quite simple for most books, but it's just about thinking in terms of what the customer would want. So is it normal in that situation to do a color book and you're doing black and white? Is it normal for an ebook? Are people using audio books much more? So think about how people will consume your book. Okay. And at the moment, you've got 4 options. You've got the ebook, the paperback, the hardback, and the audio. And you can do all of those through Amazon. And if you're doing a non-fiction book, then it's really better if you actually record the audio yourself, because people want to hear from the person who wrote the book. Okay, so when it comes to preparation, then it's all about making sure you write the right book, because like everything else, if you don't get that bit right, everything that follows will be flawed. It's like trying to build a house on sand. It just doesn't work. So get your foundation sorted and you can't go far wrong. The U is underpinning, and this is your author platform. Okay. And once you've got clear about your idea and you can start writing your outline of the book, you need to think about your author platform, because your author platform is how you're going to sell the book afterwards. And this is where we look at your website, we look at your email list, and we look at your social media. If you've got any PR, podcasts, or anything like that, how are you going to get known to people? Now, I think somebody said that Hay House will not look at you as an author unless you've got at least 5,000 followers at the very minimum, because they work on the basis that, you know, they need to sell books. And if only 5,000 people know you and a small proportion will buy from you, then that's not going to be a bestseller. That's not going to be worth their while. Okay, so you need to build your audience, and that just takes time. So while you're writing your book, start building your audience. Look at your website. So a business website is very different to an author's website. If you think about Stephen King, his website is all about his books. So his books, you know, which ones he's doing, which series, what events he's doing, you know, what's coming up next. But if you're a business book, then if your book isn't the primary thing, your business is. So your book is still there, but it's on the front of it, but it's not that far down. So if you look at somebody like Marie Forleo, so if we just have a look at her website. So she has written a bestseller book, but if you have a look at her website is primarily about her online course, her B School. because that's where her money is. That's where everything is that leads to it. So she's got a bit about herself. She's got where you can find her, about her TV, but much, much further down is her book. Okay. So yes, she's written a book, but from her point of view, it's not everything. Okay. Her business is front and center. So she will tell you about it, but everything is about the courses and everything else. So her book is almost secondary. It's how people will find her, but what she's selling is B-School. So when you're doing a website for your book, you need to think in terms of how you're going to promote it. So you can see here that she's got information about her book on there when you go through the video. At the time it was released, everything on this top bit was all about that book. A year later, everything's about her course. Okay, so just think in terms of that. All right, so you will be selling your book, and as you sort of market it, you need to get people to know you, like you, and trust you. And you can see that she's got the book there as well. Okay, so when you're sort of setting everything up, the whole point of your website is to get people from social media onto your website and from your website onto your email list. So with Marie Forleo, she's got very closely listen to audio, get 3 things that will change your life fast. Instant access, very quick, pretty much the second thing you see on her website, getting you onto her email list, because that is how important the email list is. And when she published It's All Figureoutable, she wrote it, the publication day was September, but she sent out an email in March of the same year, so 6 months prior. So everything was ready. It was available for pre-order on Amazon, and she started sending out messages to her list for a full 6 months before that book was released. Okay, so when you're publishing a book and you want it to be a bestseller, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, it's about getting the right book and having the right platform to sell it from. Because if you don't get those 2 things right, you can create a really good book and it won't sell. And that is just so heartbreaking when you put so much effort into it. So think in terms of, for social media, it's about getting people know you, like you, trust you, get them onto your website and onto your email list, because that's when you can start talking to them. And as part of your email list, you can drip feed things about your book. You can ask questions, you can talk about it and get people interested in it. And then you can ask them if they want to be beta readers or things like that, but get them involved in the process early on. You may feel a bit of an imposter syndrome on that one, because some people will feel that if they do that, then they're not going to finish, and then how's it going to feel like? But it's about having some sort of accountability. You know, you have to finish that goal. So if you're not, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your audience, do it for them. Okay, because that's the people you're supposed to be helping. Let me just go on mute a second. Okay, come on. There you go. Right. So getting your author platform done is just so important. Okay, because once you've got those 2 things sorted, at that point you can start writing your book, and B is the book. Okay, and it's taking time to write it, but when you're writing your book, the easiest thing to do is to get caught up in the imposter syndrome again and try and keep editing and keep editing. No, what you need to do is just almost vomit out everything that you know about the subject. Get it into some sort of order and just let that be the first draft. You will have loads more words than you needed, but that's what it's about. It's about editing afterwards, and it's about polishing it. So think of it in terms of a diamond. When you find a diamond, it just looks like a bit of rock, but it's only when you cut it and shape it and polish it that it becomes something of value. And the same thing applies to your book. Okay, so throw everything at it to start off with. Get that first draft written. It is going to be crap, I guarantee you. You're going to hate it, and you're going to think it's the biggest load of SH1, but just throw everything at it, because this is where you can pare back and find the essence of the book. And that's what good editing is about. Okay, And once you've got it edited, then you get a proofreader in to just check the spellings and everything like that. And then you're almost ready. You know, it takes a long time to do that. It'll take, you know, anything from 6 months to a year to do that. If you're writing a book, it could take even longer for some people. I think with Ulysses, it took something like 22 years. But that's considered a sort of fantastic book. I sort of couldn't get past the first page myself, but, you know, horses for courses. So with the published method, then we're looking at the next bit, which is leave. So leave it to the professionals. In this one, because this is the course I'm going to be running, we also look at leveraging your book. Okay, so when Cheryl did her book, she was thinking in terms of the course that she was running, and it was part of the course. When you do your book, it's going to be a case of how you're going to leverage it, because the reality is an awful lot of books just make a few quid each copy, so you have to sell thousands of copies to make any money. And the reality is most people don't know thousands of people to actually sell it to. Okay, so when you look at it, think in terms of how you're going to actually leverage it. Where does it sit in your sales funnel, and how you can make use of it? Okay, so if you look at Denise Duffield Thomas, she wrote Get Rich Lucky Rich, she wrote Chill and Prosper, Chillpreneur. All roads from her book lead to her, you know, from her $15 book to her $2,500 course with B School. But because she has created a really good book and a really good awareness, she's got people on her email list and got a really good offer, and she's always talking about how she helps people and what she's doing as part of her email list. She has that know you, like you, trust you, so people will save up to go to B School, not to B School, to Money Bootcamp. Okay. So when you're thinking in terms of the bestseller, one thing that's really useful to do is have a look at Kindlepreneur's bestseller calculator. And it's on this website, so I shall put that into the chat. 1 second. So you can give it a try yourself. And this guy, Dave Chesson, he's really cool. He's got so many resources to help you publish your book. But what he did is he basically scraped through with Amazon and looked at how many sales it took to have a bestseller on Amazon. So if you go onto Amazon, okay, you go into bestsellers, you've got bestsellers and more, and you have the book lists. So you have the charts, most read, and then you have the category bestsellers. And you can see here with Amazon, it's updated hourly. Okay, if you think about the pop charts of the 80s, 90s, and current times, they look at how many records or CDs or downloads were done over a week's period, and they go to all these different shops to aggregate it up. Amazon is just one big store, and they update it hourly to see who sold more. Okay, so when you're selling your book and you're uploading onto Amazon and you really see it for the first time, you actually need to keep an eye on it for, you know, almost on an hourly basis to check where it is in the charts. It will take about half a day for some of the sales to kick in, but once it does, and once they start getting counted, then you'll start seeing yourself go up in the charts. And I swear to God, there is nothing better than seeing your book in the charts. You know, it's as good as having a child is, you know, sometimes you wish you could hand it back, but seeing that there is just like there's nothing better like it. And to a certain degree, this is why having a book is kind of addictive. Okay, so if we have a look at the bestsellers in Kindle, at the moment we've got a green roasting tin vegan and vegetarian book. Oh, there you go, perfect cookery. It's already got 6,000 reviews on it, so if you times 10, that's probably about how much books it's selling. And you can see if we go down, and this is where you need to look for the figures. Okay, so cool. This is what you're looking for. Where did you go? It's this bestsellers rank. So it's actually number 2 in Kindle Store. So it may even be updated in the last 30 seconds. Okay, so if we go on to Kindlepreneur and we type in 2 in the Kindle books, okay, that means she sold over 5,000 books in a day to get to that spot. So that's all of Amazon. Okay. And she's got all of these, she's on all these different areas. Okay. So if we go back, okay, and we take a different area. So if we go into books and we go into, let's have a look. Something that education reference. So something that's not so good. Let's have a look. Publishing, I think. Let's see how. Publishing and books always a good one. Okay, so publishing and books is a great category. And this is Stephen King. This is a book that is pretty much evergreen now. It's become the standard for anybody who wants to write a book to read this book. Okay, it is really good. It's a sort of part memoir, part telling you what it is. And if we go in there, you can see he's already got 11,000 reviews. So he's sold thousands of copies of this. Okay, and you can go down, you can see where it is in the Amazon charts at the moment. Okay, so it's 23,000. Okay, so if we go into the bestsellers list, so bear in mind where it was. So we click on try again, and it was what? 23587. 23587. Click here. So to get to the chart for that book, okay, he sold 12 books in that day. So he's number 1 in words and reference, so words and language, 6 in nature writing, 6 in adult continuing education. But to get to that chart on Amazon, he just needed 12 books sold in that day. Okay, so it's really useful to have a look at the sales rank calculator to see for your niche how many books you need to sell on that first day to get into the top 100. Okay, and to get into the top rankings. So if we go and have a look, so that book was what, number 4 in that chart. For the number 1, bear in mind it's the same author. Where are you? Come right down. We've gone down to 8,957. Okay, 17 books in a day. So if you wanted a bestseller in the book publishing category for books on Kindle, all you would need to do is sell about 20 copies of that book in one day. Okay, and basically it's just a case of sitting down there and planning it out beforehand and creating that author platform, writing the book that people want. So having a look at books like Stephen King's, so you can see that you've got somebody who's there at how to write a novel, and people are actually selling things about people in book list order for 99¢. You know, I mean, how crazy is that? Absolutely mad, but people are buying them because you can see them in the chart. You know, On Writing Well, that's the 30th anniversary. That's an absolute classic. Another book to have a read of yourself. And you can see people are actually selling the reading order of certain books. People are buying them. Absolutely crazy. So you can see. So if we went down to the 100th in this category, so just to get into the top 100, okay, and if we go to the next page, just bear in mind this is purely Amazon. This isn't all the other book charts, so this isn't the New York Times bestsellers list or anything like that. Okay. So this one is number 100. It's Blurb Your Enthusiasm, A to Z of Literary Persuasion. Interesting. Okay, so if we have a look at the sales rank for this one, it's 111,400. So 111,400. So to get just into the top 100, she just had to sell a book, basically. Okay, So I'm gonna, when I write my book on publishing, I'm gonna get in there and have loads of there and hopefully have a bestseller on that one, because if I can, if I can get 100 people to buy my book in the first day and first week, then that will be on the bestsellers list, and then I can call myself a best-selling author, an Amazon best-selling author, as opposed to a USA Today or New York Times. There are lots of different bestsellers. Now, when you're setting out your goal, and this goes back to preparation, you have to think about, yes, you may want a bestseller, but how do you define a bestseller? For you, is it enough to be an Amazon bestseller, or is it enough to be a USA Today? Do you want it to be New York Times? Do you want it to be the Times? What is your definition of a bestseller? Okay, do you want to be on the paper? All the New York Times, those bestsellers are based on sales in bookshops, in which case you have to get your book into bookshops. And Amazon does really, really well. But if you want to do into bookshops, you have to publish with Ingram Spark or get a publisher deal. Okay, or have a distributor, in which case, you need to get a publisher who has a distributor for you. So Ingram Sparks does that for you. They're a different kettle of fish to Amazon. It's a little bit hard when you have to pay for it, but they do have a database that is used by bookshops. The problem you have is you have to create the demand for the bookshops to even stock you, because they have limited space. Amazon, they've got an infinite amount of space on their databases that they can store everything on Amazon on the website. When you've got a physical bookshop, they are prioritizing books that sell, because that's what they're in business to do. So if you can prove that your book will sell, the chances are they will stock it for you. And if you can do that with a local bookshop, where you give them some exclusivity, you're the only bookshop I'm going to sell this to in Cardiff, because you're independent, and I will let people know, and I'll do book signing here and all that sort of stuff. Then that will help generate sales. Okay, but you have to think about what you want in terms of your goal. If you want to get into New York Times, then you need to actually go with a publisher, and for most of them you need an agent, and for most of them you need to have at least 5,000 or 10,000 people following you on social media. Okay, so you have to think about it and get that balance right. So if you want to go with a publisher, you need to start building your profile so that they'd be actually interested in you. If you think in terms of Denise Duffield Thomas, I mean, she published Get Rich Lucky Bitch. It was #1. She was only offered a deal with Hay House because one of the people working there actually knew of her and suggested it to them in some kind of meeting. And then they offered her a sort of writing contract. And she wrote Chill and Chillpreneur, and then Chill and Prosper. So whatever deal she's got within them, but they are actually helping her get it out there. But again, when she was doing the launch of her book, 3 months beforehand, she was talking about it on her email list. Okay, she was asking people to pre-order the book, and she was offering different bonuses for people. So if you signed up to her email list, it automatically took you to a website where lots of bonuses, things like meditations around money blocks, different things that you could download. And there was not one thing, there were several things. So whatever you were after, whatever support from the book that you wanted, she had lots of different things. Bear in mind, she'd already created them. She just had rebranded it for Chill and Prosper. Okay, so she had all the images of the book and everything else set up. So, this is where having your proof copy sorted out and having all your images sorted out is really, really helpful to publicize it. But again, she was publicizing it a long time before the book was released to create that momentum and create that interest and to get it into the #1 charts. Okay, so you really have to think about that. All right, so P, preparation, U, underpinning, is all about your author platform. B is about writing your book. L is leave it to the professionals, get an editor and proofreader in, but it's also about leveraging it if it's a book in your business. I is image, and this is all about your book cover. So the thing about your book cover is, until your book is actually finished, you can't really do your book cover, because it's about that spine. You know, if your spine is a fixed space, and if it changes, then it changes the whole bit of the book. So it's also good time to do, if you're going to do it as an audiobook, it's a good time to do that as well, to record that, so that when you release it, you're releasing all the versions of your book at the same time. Okay. S is for share. So it's all about sharing your book. So initially, it's about getting people to have a look at your image, look at your book title, get people interested in the process. So what do you think of A title versus B title? What do you think of A book cover versus B book cover? Do you want it colored? Do you want it black and white? What do you think of this? Is this missing? Then it's about getting the proof copies out there, checking them, make sure they're okay, sending the proof copies to some some beta readers. And beta, you know, you've got an editor and you've got a proofreader, and they are looking at it from a technical point of view. But your beta readers are actually looking at it from a reader's point of view. And if you're writing a book that's maybe sensitive, then it's a really good idea to get somebody in that niche or in that culture to actually read it and just check it for sensitivity. Because what you don't want to do is get bad reviews because you put your foot in your mouth. And I do that so often. So you just be very careful about that, you know. Once you've done that, again, before it's live, go and sort of share it with some influence if you can. There is a website called NetGalley, and it would be really useful if you read books. It would be really useful to sign up to. And what NetGalley does is okay, right. It allows you to, if you remember, then you get put into almost like a lottery of books that are available for pre-reading. So you can sometimes see a review on Amazon where, you know, thank you for the copy on NetGalley. This is my review of it. So they're getting the reviews in early because people have already read the book. So it's available for pre-order. These people have already had it for pre-order, and they've been able to say, this is a good book. So coming off and starting with a 5-star review will actually give you a lot of credibility. Okay, so that's really, really important. So NetGalley, if you're not on it, think about becoming on there. Become a member as a reader first, and then when you want to, as an author, think about going on there afterwards, especially if you're writing a book that is a reading book, because you can see there's loads of stuff on there. And again, it just helps people find audiences as well. Okay, so they are almost beyond beta readers at this point. Okay, and we still haven't published it. It's not live yet. Okay. So then once you've done all that, and once you're happy with your book, you've got everybody's feedback from it, you've polished it to within an inch of its life, you're happy with the book cover, everybody else knows it, the world and his wife know you've got a book coming out on X day, and there is no excuse for it. You've got everything lined up, you've got your bonuses that people can get, and they're talking about it. Then you can actually release your book and start hyping. And it's basically about selling your book. You know, it's about the hustle almost. You know, you as an author have to sell your book. That is your job. You may think it's about writing it. Actually, writing it is the easy part. Once it's like having a child. Once the child is born, then you've got to raise it. You know, 0 to 9, you know, that's just gestation. Once it's published, you've got 18 years of, you know, trying to sell your book or raise your child, whichever one you want to choose. You know, if you look at books like Charles Dickens, you know, that's an evergreen book. It's been on sale in charts for hundreds of years now, 200 years, if something like that, ridiculous. 1800s, I think it was published. So you've got a long time where people are still buying that book because it's just so good, and it still speaks to everybody at this, you know, this current moment in time. So there you go. Any questions? Have I bamboozled you completely? Yvonne? I think we're down to 3 people now, so
Well, I'm still here and I'm not bamboozled yet. I'm just still excited. So there we go.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, Yvonne, what book you're writing.
What book I'm writing? Well, you'll be pleased to know I finally started writing the 12th Cracker.
Yay!
Yay! So I'm on holiday next week, so I'm taking it with me to see if a bit of sun and a bit of sand will help the inspiration.
Wonderful.
And if you're doing it as a parable book, then have a look at parable books like Who Ate the Cheese. So they're smaller books. They've got big fonts.
Yeah.
So not many words per page. There's an awful lot of fluff either side of it. But they still are good books and they still stand the test of time.
I do like that one.
Yeah. So it's worth buying it as a paper copy, a paperback copy, to actually see the physical size of it, see the font size of it.
Yes, I've got that.
Yeah, and think in terms of how it was built and how it was made, and because there's an awful lot of stuff beforehand, before the story's told, an awful lot of stuff afterwards. And you could do something similar. So you could get people to talk about the impact it has. You could get, have a little workbook around it if you wanted to, or even just the 12th Cracker journal, and create a journal that goes with that. But when you're sort of creating a book and you spend so much time, it's about thinking how you can leverage it, because you might sell an awful lot of books, and hopefully you will do, but most people don't. And when Cheryl had me doing the analysis of competitors, and I had a look at was it Penguin UK, they had, I think it was on their website, they had sold something like 140 million copies of books for 85,000 authors, and that could be just the UK. And I may have got those numbers wrong, but when you divided it out, it was about 1,500 per author. Okay, so that's not per book, that's per author. And you can actually do a lot better than that. So if you think in terms of Instagram is very visual. So you can share your book cover on there, you can put visual images on there around it. You can get quotes, and there's a really nice person that I met about 2 weeks ago called Sarah Fletcher. And what she does is she's like this social media person for authors. And I'm just delighted that I got to meet her. What she does, she has this package whereby she will take your book, she will read it, and she will create a year's worth of social media content using quotes from your book and lots of stuff around it.
Who was that?
Sorry?
Who was that?
Her name's Sarah Fletcher.
Oh, right.
Let me see if I can find her on LinkedIn, because she is worth connecting with. And she's just such a nice lady. She's so switched on. Okay, so her website is Mushroom Souffle.
I like it.
And she is absolutely amazing. So she does social media mentoring and training, but she is all about pulling your book apart to find those bits that she can use on social media. And she has this pack. It's not, as I say, it's not cheap, but she's worth it because she gives you years worth of content, and then you can just reuse it year after year. So that will save you huge amounts of time. And she gets to the heart of your book.
That's brilliant. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's really not cheap, but it is immense value because you don't have to do it then. She's going through your book with a fine-tooth comb, and it's almost like having an extra pair of eyes on there, but creating the content around it. So that just saves you a massive job and allows you to market and sell your book and focus on that as well. Okay, so when you think in terms of the bestseller, just think in terms of, what kind of bestseller, where do you want to sell it, who is going to buy it, where do they normally consume books? So for example, if you had a children's book, a lot of people, are they buying it on Amazon, or are they going to the local shop, taking their children in there, or are they going to the library? lots of different options. So really think about it. So one of my she's a business coach in the next village. She actually just spoke to the librarian and just got a couple of books that she had, donated them to the local library to make them available, so she could say that it was in the local library.
Nice.
Just gives that credibility. So if you tell people it's in the local library and they create the demand because it's a library and it's free, then they may think about it and may talk about it amongst themselves. Yeah, it's about creating the demand for it. And if you can create the demand before it's available, you know, if you think about the Christmas #1s on the record charts, you know, people are marketing those albums and songs weeks beforehand, all with the one goal of getting to that #1 spot during that week. So
I just wanted to ask Yvonne a question, Karen, about this 12th Cracker book. Wouldn't that make a good Christmas book?
It would.
Timing would be critical of that, wouldn't it? You know, it could be
I think the
massive.
children's version would be a good Christmas book.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think for adults, because everyone is looking for, you know, the New Year's resolutions, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Better get a shimmy on then, haven't I?
well, you either do it and get it done for this year, in which case it needs to be done by October at the very latest, because you've only got a 2-month period to sell it in and you want people to buy it for Christmas.
Yeah.
So people aren't going to buy it after Christmas.
No.
So you want it, and they're not going to buy it as a Christmas present. They're going to buy it as a book to read before Christmas. Okay. And you could almost get somebody who, do you know, there's a book and it's been read out loud by famous actors and it's about getting the child to sleep, and it's a sweary one. You know, it's really, really funny. And then you've got there was another one that a lady read out a book on YouTube because it was just so naughty, and she just couldn't stop giggling as she was trying to read this book. Have you come across that one?
Yes, I got the link from you, Karen, that one.
Yeah.
Bear or something, or
Beaver.
Beaver, that's right, the beaver. That was hysterical.
It was just so funny. So she you know, somebody randomly did a YouTube video reading out, and people got so curious about it, they went and had a look because it was just so funny. And of course, this person has written several books of the same ilk. So once you buy one, you buy all of them. And that's the other thing with bestsellers, you know, you can't be a one-hit wonder. You have to write more than one book. You know, and that's how an awful lot of people do it. So what some people do, you know, if they've got a series of books, they will have one book that is continuously offered for free, usually the first in the series. Because if you go to the end of the first book, if you're like me and you're a bit OCD when it comes to reading, you have to read the next one because you want to know what's going to happen on. And then you go 40 books later, you've read the whole series, and then you're done, you know, until the next one comes on pre-order, and then you get it pre-ordered and you just wait for it to arrive. So I think I've got at the moment something like 35 books on pre-order. So that's how bad I am. You know, if I like an author, I will just follow them on Amazon. Amazon will tell me.
Yeah, me too.
That they've got a new book out. I will pre-order it. And I may, you know, if you look at my pre-orders, I'm something like let's have a look. Not yet dispatched. So that one's due in November, September, November, October, February next year. So yeah, I'm on page 3.
Brilliant, I love it.
So I'm a bit of an addict, so you know.
I wanted to add something as well for Yvonne, from a marketing perspective. Had she thought of selling the two together, like a mother and child deal?
Oh yeah.
And then when she's reading the book, which one is she going to be reading to the child?
Well, the child's one, but I was thinking, those people, it could spark the interest of the parent for themselves as well. So do the mum and child put them out as a deal together.
Yeah, wasn't it Stephen Coveney's? Didn't his son write a book?
I don't know. He might have done.
Because wasn't there a 7 effective people, but a child one?
There's also a family one.
Yeah, I think his son started writing them. There you go, Sean Covey. So if I just go into that one and going to him. So he started writing 7 Habits of Effective Teens and wrote a load of different books with a similar principle, but different audience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it works. So you need to choose which one you want, the adult version or the children's version, and then look at how you want that sorted.
No, I was thinking of doing both books and selling them as a double deal.
Yeah, you can do.
Because Yvonne has, I don't know if I've got this right, you're going to write a children's version and an adult's version, aren't you?
I am.
So I was just thinking of being able to sell those as a book deal together on Amazon, you know, because they say, you know, buy this one, you might be interested in that one, but you could
Right, it's the people who buy this have also bought the other.
Yes.
So if we go into this one and go into, for example, the Kindle edition, then when you scroll down, they haven't done that. Why haven't they done that? Oh yeah, customers also viewed this.
Yeah.
There's
Mm.
let's have a look. Yeah, so they got next in the series as well. So this is where their series have been really useful.
I could just imagine you Yvonne, having a page like that, then with, you know, you can be adding titles to it as well.
Mm. Yeah, I've got an author page on my website. It's got nothing on it at the moment, but
Yeah,
it's there ready.
Could I ask you, Yvonne, in your writing of the 12 crackers, could it be an opportunity for you? You know, when you say like Johnny, the whatever,
Yeah.
cracker number 1, couldn't Johnny have some problems, you know? And so that could be a book in the future.
I'm sure Johnny had a lot of problems. Yeah. You didn't see my classmates.
No, but
well, it
then,
sounds like you've got the series. You've got the first cracker, the second cracker, the third cracker.
Mm.
yeah, because, you know, you could say, you know, I was in school with a bunch of people who were crackers anyway, and I didn't recognize it, but now on reflection, this is how they turned out, and this is how they presented as children. That ties in really well with your parenting.
It does.
You know, because you could have Johnny from whatever that was getting beaten up at school, you know, perhaps he was the bully. Number 1 was the bully who had cracker number 1, yeah, and everyone was frightened of him. But in reality, a lot was going on for bully boy Billy, yeah.
Mm.
So so you were the 12th cracker, but perhaps you didn't realize the 11 crackers before you were crackers.
They definitely were.
But it gives you that opportunity for a series, doesn't it?
Mm.
And for people to, again, you could have the adult version of each of those. So you could have, you know, how parents deal with bully children. Yeah. And then the children's version of bullying at school.
Because you could almost have that, almost becomes a third type of book though, doesn't it? Because that's more about how do you parent all these different type of crackers children.
Well, that could be one book and each one of the children is a different chapter.
Mm.
I see them very much like parent and children books, because how the parents deal with it, but also something for the child to read to the child. on bullying. It's almost
Yeah.
like a parent-child set of books, yeah?
Yeah.
Based on your other hat of being, you know, an amazing parenting counselor, therapist, mentor. I think they could work really well together. You know, it's almost like parent and child book series, you know, parent and child pack.
Well, this is the book, this is the story you're teaching your child, this is the parenting pack to teach you how to have a discussion around the content of the book.
Yeah.
There we are. So now you've got, thought you were writing 2 books, now you're writing another 22 books on top of it.
I'm going to have to give up coming to these meetings. I really am. I mean, I retired for an easy life. I'm not coming anymore.
Do you understand why I keep getting more cushions every time I come on with Cheryl?
I think I'll go back to the day job, actually. It's a bit easier.
I think that's
but not as much fun.
No, not as much fun.
I think that's wonderful, though, you know, when you think of how skillful you are, Yvonne, and to think of, you know, you can, though, yes, you, in some ways, you've already got an audience for it.
Well, the thing is, you don't have to write them all at once. If you think about Harry Potter, she took 10 years to write between the first and the last ones. And if you think in terms of the Gruffalo books, you know, there's a series of books, but they did take time. So you don't have to produce them all at once. But if you give people an inkling that there is a series in there, it may be that if you talk to a publisher or a publishing agent and talk to them about the series themselves, they might be interested in it and help you publish it.
Yeah, that's true.
So what kind of books are you publishing at the moment, Karen? What seems to be the theme of books that people are interested in getting published?
I'm not doing a huge amount at the moment because I've just had to sort of back off a little bit and just free up time. So at the moment, I'm helping someone, again, who has done an awful lot of spiritual stuff. Unfortunately, he's a little bit dyslexic. So there's an awful lot of editing going on there as well. But it's going to be a really nice book. And with his job, and yes, he hasn't got a huge amount on social media, but he's well known outside of it, offline, if that makes sense. So he has already got lots of places he can sell his book quite easily just because of the people he knows in the real world. So that one's just a case of getting finished. I'm working on a budgeting book, which is an update of one that I've already helped write. So she's done, I think this is about the 3rd year that she's published the same journal, and we just update it each year. But in the time that we've been together, she's grown her audience to something like 40,000 people on Instagram, just by consistently showing up, because it's a budgeting book and because she just talks about saving money and different ways of budgeting and how she does it and how she uses her own book. Then people buy it because she's actually showing how to use it and showing how effective it is, because it was her method that we just turned into a book and she just wanted it made pretty. So this time around, it's just been quite good fun. So yeah, so that's my main one at the moment. So at the moment, I'm focusing on just doing the published method as a 12-month program, simply because I just don't know what's going to be happening in the next year or so. So I just want to simplify things as much as possible. So if I can work with 10 or 20 people on the published method over 12 months, then that should be enough work and enough income balanced. Still put out the book templates as a sort of smaller one. So I've got my sort of low cost, medium cost and high cost items, but focusing on the high cost one at the moment, just so that you know, if everybody does the thing for a year, the published method for a year, then they'll finish around September next year and they'll have the book ready then for the Christmas market next year. But they'll have taken the time to do it properly and go through the whole process properly. So that's my goal at the moment, is to sort of get that website finished, get people onto it and off the old one, Keep the branding, so it's very specific to Grey Mouse and it has the colours and everything like that. But not overstuffing it. I think the last one I just overstuffed it, people get overwhelmed and just didn't do anything with it, whereas this one is just a case of more focused, more targeted, so that you get the benefit of it. And then you've got the option of just doing the online course or having the accountability as well. So with with that one, so we've got the bronze, which is just the course and weekly calls. So you just get one, you don't get one-to-ones, you just get a group call. With the silver, it's one-to-one calls, and then with the gold, it's one-to-ones, but I'll actually format a couple of your books for you as well, so you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, thank you very much, Karen. I think we've
Just
all...
one question, Karen.
You thought you were finished there.
I know. Somebody said to me the other day,
yeah,
is it, why not publish, say, the 12th Cracker, or just get it out there as a short story first to generate interest? Is that a waste of time?
Okay, let me ask you this question. If you do that and generate interest and it's out there publicly, why would they buy the book?
That's right.
I'm thinking not as a book, but perhaps as a magazine article, or...
But again,
Get your book. And I suppose I just wanted to add, I know so many people who find it so difficult to write at home, they actually book themselves in a hotel for a few nights just to get their head square on it, because they just can't do it at home because they keep getting disturbed, or see themselves as a different person at home than they would see themselves if they took themselves seriously and just took themselves away and did the job.
There are people, and I might do this with the publishing method when we focus on the actual book part, where we set up a 1 hour call and we do the Pomodoro technique, where you worked for 25 minutes, you take a break for 5 minutes, you do another 25 minutes, you take a break, and maybe do that 3 times a week, and then that should give you enough. But it's almost about setting a goal so small each day for writing that you can't fail. And even if you just set a goal of 50 words a day, that's just 2 sentences, and if you just write though and just keep consistently doing it, you may write more. But if you set the minimum of something so low you can't fail, then you can do that. And I can create a little chart where you can just sort of colour them in as you do that to get to 100%, because they're quite easy to do.
Oh, Yvonne, you'd love that. Nice little chart.
Oh, I'd love a chart. Use all my colours.
The Leonie Dawson did a really good one, which was do you know those charts that almost like the church ones where they go to the top, so they're sort of tall and almost like a ladder with the amounts in there. And of course, Leonie Dawson, being Leon Dorsey, she made it very phallic. So you coloured it in at the top, and then that was when it was finished, and it's almost like the sperm coming out. So you can do that, or I can do ones that 100 little images, and each one is 1% of the book. So if you set your target, and then with just each one is 1%, and then you just colour it in, so you can see your 10% in there, or 12-20% in there.
I do things like that for my business. I have little charts, and I cut them in. Yeah, so there's lots of different things we can do like that, just to give you something to sort of play around with.
And where do you think the market's going, Karen? With Christmas looming there, what do you think the market's going to be at Christmas book-wise?
To be honest, I don't know. I mean, the books that are popular are the books that are always popular. Romance is always popular. With business books, it's always about how you're going to make money, or how you're going to do something more effectively. It's that whole thing of business is about making money. So if you're an employee, do you help them make money by improving sales? Do you help them save money by doing something more efficiently, or do you invent a whole different way of doing something? So it's difficult to know. I mean, I'm not great at sort of looking at the market, because I tend to focus on what I like, and I tend to focus on the authors that I like. So I'm very much niche focused, unfortunately. So I can sort of keep an eye on things, and I can see the same authors coming up. So for example, I see Harlan Corbin's got a new book out. It's gone straight to #1. It's probably going to be on Netflix shortly. So he does the movie tie-ins, and they seem to be very popular. Cookbooks are always popular at Christmas because everybody wants to do new things. Books for children are always popular because they want some stocking fillers and something new to read. Around Christmas, parents want something to read just to, they've got the chance to sit down and put the feet up. So whatever book they're into reading, whether it's a romance, whether it's adventure, whether it's crime novel, they're the books that always sell. And from a sort of publisher's point of view, they will always look for people who buy, do those. And you can see at the moment that one that was #1 was just very simple, one tin foil thingy majiggy cooking. Stick a tub in the oven, throw loads of things in it, and you've got a meal, basically.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing this evening, and thank you for coming, Yvonne. Are there any final questions before we close off this evening?
No, I'm really good now. Wish I'd never come. No, it's been great.
And
if you set your goal of either get one done for Christmas, whether it's the parent or the child or both.
I think the parent one is easier, simply because I need good illustrations for the children one, and I think that's going to take some time to
find. Would take some time, and to be honest, it would take a bit of money if you get a really good illustrator.
Yeah. And I think that's going to take a bit of time. So that's my plan for next Christmas, and get the parent one out.
Yeah. But to me, the children's one's going to be the bigger market.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Yeah. So it might be worth sort of parking the adults one from a sales point of view, getting it written, and then do the adults one. Sorry, do the children's one with the illustrations, and then launch them at the same time, so that you've got the cross sell. Yeah,
that would be good.
Because sometimes, it's back to the sprint or the marathon. If you wait a little bit and have the two sales together.
Yeah, that would be good.
And just take the time, take the time to get the illustrations done, to get it right, and then do the adults version. You can do them at the same time, or do the adults one, then get the illustrations sorted out for the children's one. But just think in terms of the children's one, people do like poetry, so if you can get it to rhyme, that would be good. Depends on what you want to do. But children's rhyming books sell really well. Coloured illustrations sell really well.
It's finding the right illustrator, I think, is the key to that.
There's a Facebook group for children's authors and illustrators.
I got that one. Yeah, he gave me that. So
yeah, there's a few other places. There's if you join the Alliance of Independent Authors, they have a Facebook group, and again, you can post a question in there around illustrators. But you don't want somebody who's just starting out, because they will do a good job very cheaply. But you want someone who's going to do a really good job, and maybe have to invest in it a little bit. But you'll get more sales at the end of it.
Yeah.
How exciting. Can't wait to see it.
No, me.
But you need to sort of think in terms of talking about it, and think about podcasts and stuff like that. You can go and do almost like a podcast tour. Think about local radio that you can talk about it. Get people to know you, like you, trust you beforehand.
Yeah, I've got somebody I'm talking to about radio on Friday, and somebody else on Saturday. One does local radio, the other one does Radio Wales.
Yeah, it's about getting to know the local people, so that when you actually have it out there, you can talk to them and just say, look, I've got this book coming out, or these 2 books coming out. They're there for the children's market. This is what it's about. You may even want to do a Welsh translated version, and do something that gets people talking, because it's in the Welsh language.
I just want to add something for you, Yvonne, because I know you're very visual, and you like a process behind it. When I was in Durham, and I was really struggling to get my head around how do I write a dissertation, and I wanted it to be, you know, a really high scoring dissertation. I went to the library to find out who was the winner of last year's Dissertation of the Year award, and I just took the book out and took the dissertation out and photocopied every part of it that I could, so that I actually knew the strategy. Yeah. And so when I wrote my piece, because the guy that was teaching us how to write a dissertation in Durham Business School threw me out of the lesson. He said I wasn't taking the qualification seat.
Surely not.
And so I then had to go and see the head of the business school to say, you know, I've been thrown out of the how to write a dissertation, because of course mine was more psychology based, and he said I should just keep going with people asking questions, and I said I'm not qualified to do that, and it's not about using case studies to wreck their whole life and their perception of their parents as part of my research. So he threw me out. So when I went to see, you know, the head of the business school, and he said, come on, Ashel, it can't be that bad, and he took me back to the guy, and he tried to have a conversation with the guy, and then he ended up saying, Shell, you're not going to be working together, because he doesn't understand how dangerous psychology is as a case study. And when you're questioning people on their childhood development and things that are gone on, it's very borderline. Is it a case study, or is it you end up almost like offering somebody psychotherapy as part of your research? So he said, this guy isn't the guy to tutor you, so I'll tutor you. And my dissertation went on to win the Dissertation of the Year in Durham University, but I knew it was based on the fact I knew what a winning one looked like. I knew exactly what a winning dissertation looked like. And that, for me, I thought, this is fantastic, because he's going to have to use mine as an example next year, because I won. So it's like payback, I won. But
Success is the best revenge.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm saying that is that I think it'd be really good for you to spend an afternoon in a children's bookshop and get hold of a book that you would like yours to look like. Yeah. And then you'll get a real sense of what size, how many pages, what kind of illustrations that are there going to be. And I think for you, it's going to be more about how many pages for you to know how much you've got to write. Because I think you've made a mountain out of the writing. So I think if you found a book, say, for example, with 30, 60 pages, you could almost in your head, because I know how you work, you could almost then take apart that book and say, hang on, it's actually a book that has 30 pages of text that is almost like a paragraph equivalent. And I think then you can almost visualize the story as you walk through an example of a book that you like. And then it's going to be easier for you to almost like visualize the kind of illustrations you're looking for per page, relating to how much text you've got to write up for it.
Yeah, good idea.
And so say, for example, you found a book, and I think children's books are no more than about 30 or 40 pages. Really, you know, as Karen was saying, you could then say, okay, I'm going to do 1 page a day or whatever. And it ain't such a big deal then, when all you got to do is write a paragraph a day. If the equivalent of text for that children's book is a paragraph or 2 or 3 paragraphs. Right, you know, I know you by now, and I think if you can visualize it, you can create it. But it's almost like as though I know you've got to begin with the end in mind. And so if you went to a bookshop,
Whole map on this, I will do a good map of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at any children's book, you know, the first page is the title page, then you got the copyright page, then you got some blurb, and it's only about the 4th or 5th book page in that you're actually starting the story, and then at the back of the book is this book, other books that person's wrote. So if you break down the structure of the book, then you realize that, you know, of the book, that there's not a huge amount for you to do, but it is going to be about those illustrations.
12 crackers, you know, you're only talking, you know, 1 or 2 pages per cracker, aren't you? So, and if it's nice big print and it rhymes nicely, it's not a great deal of content. oh, I feel a week away coming on now that I can just lock myself away somewhere. Any excuse to get my case packed and off.
I think we're all inspired now. We all want to go away, start writing our next book.
I need to write my book and get the published method out.
Yeah, you need to have a writer's retreat. I'd come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're all going to Ireland. We're all off to Ireland.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Would you want to go to Donegal in the north, or would you want to go down to Cork in the south?
No idea.
I've never been to the north, so I don't know, but I like the south.
Yeah.
But I've never been to the north, so I wouldn't know if I liked it or not.
Well, I think if we did the west coast, then down in Cork they've got very strong accents, but in Donegal they actually speak pure Irish, so you'd be in the Gaeltacht. So you got people who might not necessarily know what you're talking about, which is quite good fun.
Well, my life.
So thank you, ladies, and thank you, Karen, for giving us such an amazing insight. And more importantly, just inspiring us to get on with our next book. So thank you very much, Karen.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
There's loads of ladies waiting for the recording of this evening, because there's lots of people away on holidays, what with it being crazy week of summer holidays with Wales. And so, yes, there's going to be a lot of people trying to get hold of you to say, what do you mean by this?
Yeah, well, if they want to speak to me, it's the bit.ly Coffee with Karen. Okay. And just have a chat. As I say, I'm going to be starting in October with the Published Method 12-month program, and see if we can get a few people through that over the next year, so that they actually do a quality book in a reasonable amount of time, so that next year they're geared up for the Christmas market, which is when most books are sold.
Because next year I've got this amount of novels to write all about my feast. I'm going to become the new Catherine Cookson.
Ooh.
So there we go.
Well, thank you, ladies.
On that to get through that.
So
look after yourselves until next Wednesday evening, and look forward to seeing you online. Hopefully people will have come back from their holidays. They won't be still on their holidays.
Well, I'm going on Sunday, so
all right, you'll be gone. It'll be just me and Karen.
It was just the two of us having a quick chat and recording it.
So thank you both, and
I'll see you tomorrow, Cheryl, at 2 o'clock.
Okay. So can we see puppies? You can turn it off now. We can see puppies.
I'll stop it. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to say good night and hope you have fun publishing your book.